Welcome to Zenith History today. We're pulling back the curtain on one of the most bizarre and secretive operations ever conducted by the CIA during the Cold War era, Operation Midnight Climax. Imagine government agents setting up hidden brothels in major cities, using unwitting citizens as guinea pigs in dangerous experiments involving mind control and drugs. Sounds like the plot of a spy thriller, right? Well, the truth is often stranger than fiction. What you're about to hear is the disturbing and fascinating story of how the CIA took extreme measures to investigate the boundaries of human consciousness, without the public's knowledge. Buckle up, because this is a wild ride through a dark chapter of American history. Our story begins in the early 1950s, when the United States was gripped by fears of communist infiltration and mind control. The Korean War had just ended, and rumors swirled that captured American soldiers had been brainwashed by their communist captors. The CIA, determined not to be left behind in the race for psychological warfare, launched a top-secret program called MKULTRA. Its goal? To explore the limits of the human mind and discover how to manipulate and control it. To achieve this, the CIA experimented with various methods, including hypnosis, sensory deprivation, and, most infamously, the use of LSD. Now, MKUltra itself is shrouded in mystery, but within this already shadowy project was an even more secretive and morally questionable sub-project, Operation Midnight Climax. This operation was the brainchild of Sidney Gottlieb, the chief chemist of the CIA's Technical Services Division, and George Hunter White, a narcotics officer who would become one of the most infamous players in this bizarre saga. White's background in law enforcement, combined with his colorful personality, made him the perfect candidate to run the operation. He had a love for adventure, alcohol, and the unconventional, which made him all too willing to oversee an operation that would involve secret drugging, observation, and, of course, hidden brothels. So, what exactly was Operation Midnight Climax? Simply put, it was a series of experiments in which the CIA set up safe houses in cities like San Francisco and New York, where they lured unsuspecting men into brothels. The men believed they were there for an evening of illicit pleasure, but in reality, they were about to become the subjects of a psychological experiment. What they didn't know was that the prostitutes who lured them there were secretly working for the CIA. And even worse, the drinks they were being served were spiked with LSD. The operation was a controlled setup. Behind one-way mirrors, George White and other CIA operatives sat and observed the effects of the drugs on their unwitting victims. They took notes, drank martinis, and watched how these men responded under the influence of LSD. White's safe houses were essentially a twisted social experiment, where he documented the unpredictable effects of mind-altering substances on behavior, particularly in the context of sexual interactions. But why brothels? Why use sex as a lure for these experiments? The CIA believed that individuals in morally compromising or illegal situations, like visiting a prostitute, were less likely to report any strange occurrences to the authorities. After all, who would believe them if they said they had been drugged and watched by government agents in a brothel? The CIA banked on this secrecy to keep the operation under wraps, even as they continued to test various drugs, not just LSD, but other mind-altering substances in the hopes of developing tools for interrogation and psychological manipulation. It's important to understand that this operation wasn't just about recreational drug use. It was part of a broader, sinister goal. The CIA wanted to learn how to manipulate people's minds for the purpose of espionage. Could drugs like LSD be used to get prisoners or captured spies to confess sensitive information? Could mind control techniques be developed to create perfect sleeper agents or to force foreign leaders into compliance? These were the questions that motivated the CIA to undertake such ethically dubious experiments. Operation Midnight Climax went on for nearly a decade, operating in the shadows with virtually no oversight. In fact, George White himself kept extensive records of his experiments in personal diaries, noting down his observations with a casual and almost humorous tone, as if he were playing a game. But this wasn't a game. The effects of these experiments on the unwitting participants were profound and often devastating. Many subjects reported paranoia, confusion, and psychological trauma long after their experience in the brothels. And remember, none of these men had consented to being part of the experiment. They were, in essence, human guinea pigs in a secret government program. As the 1960s progressed, public sentiment around the use of drugs like LSD began to shift. The drug, once seen as a potential tool for mind control, became synonymous with the counterculture and anti-establishment movements of the decade. The CIA, realizing that they were losing control over the narrative around LSD, began to scale back their experiments. In 1966, Operation Midnight Climax was finally shut down, though not before years of psychological and emotional damage had been done to its victims. So, what became of the key players involved? Sidney Gottlieb, the mastermind behind MKUltra, continued his career within the CIA, but his legacy became forever tainted by the public revelations of his involvement in unethical human experiments. George White, on the other hand, retired with little public scrutiny. In fact, White lived out his days without ever facing any formal consequences for his role in Operation Midnight Climax. When his diaries were eventually discovered after his death, they revealed a man who seemed unfazed by the ethical implications of what he had done, casually documenting the lives he had affected as if it were just another day's work. The true extent of Operation Midnight Climax and other MKUltra experiments wasn't fully revealed until the 1970s, when a series of government investigations exposed the CIA's dark and secretive history. Congressional hearings, most notably the Church Committee, delved into the widespread abuses of power that had occurred during the Cold War under the guise of national security. The public was shocked to learn that their own government had sanctioned experiments on unwitting citizens, and Operation Midnight Climax became a symbol of the excesses of unchecked power in intelligence agencies. Today, the story of Operation Midnight Climax stands as a stark reminder of the lengths to which governments will go in pursuit of control and knowledge. It's a cautionary tale about the dangers of sacrificing ethics for perceived security, and it serves as a chilling example of how easily human lives can be manipulated in the name of scientific curiosity. So, what do you think of this dark chapter in American history? Do you think we've learned from these mistakes? Or are there still secrets lurking behind the scenes? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the strange and secretive world of the CIA, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Zenith History for more fascinating content. Thanks for watching and stay curious, because the truth is often stranger than fiction.